I want to ask you about a subject that you've recently taken on the senior position at NERPC. I'd like you to help the public understand a little bit more about what is NERPC, who's on it, what do they do, what are the goals and objectives. Sort of give us the layman's guide to what NERPC is.
NERPC is the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission and serves basically two functions. That they serve as a metropolitan planning organization, and that is a technical term for many different federal organizations that federal funds, particularly in the area of transportation, come to metropolitan planning organizations that represent a diverse region. And then we also serve as a council of governments. So it's made up of elected officials from Lake, Porter, and LaPorte counties, and there are, I believe, a little over 55 commissioners that are a member of NERPC that serve on the full commission. And the areas that we address cover kind of the full gamut of regional issues, and there are any number of committees that address things like environmental aspects, planning, transportation. We have a legislative committee. And so we all work pretty well together to address regional issues, to look at the transportation piece. That's kind of a big focus, but we also look at some of the other issues that our region is facing, that NERPC is very proud, and I'm very proud as a commissioner of NERPC for the Pathway to 2040 document that was drafted a few years back, that is a very aggressive and ambitious document that outlines a path towards regional growth for Northwestern Indiana as we move towards 2040. And I think it's an excellent document to give us a strategic plan as a region for how we adapt to some changing demographics, the change in population that we have overall, and so how do we match our transportation planning with those demographics. And so it is a very comprehensive group and with a large impact across the region.
Transportation near and dear to your heart from a LaPorte County perspective. You, Michigan City, PNC coming together. A lot of work's been done. Just saw the release out today in terms of all the specifics with the Triangle transportation effort. Touch on that a little bit. How did it come about? What kind of partnership did you see happening as that led to that coming about, and what's going to be the net result?
This has been a project that has been sought after for many years by different entities, and just weren't able to come to a resolution with different partners that were at the table. And this time around, that it wasn't necessarily always easy for us because there were some kinks that had to be worked out, but because there was a commitment amongst the four different entities of the City of LaPorte, the City of Michigan City, LaPorte County, and Purdue North Central to make sure that this sort of interurban bus route was going to come to fruition. The will was there to make it happen, and we've been in discussions probably for the last couple of years to hammer out the details of how this would be operated, where the financing would come from, and NERPC has played a key role in this, that the funding for this program comes through a grant called Congestion Mitigation Air Quality, or CMAQ money, that is available to all of the respective entities that are partners in the program. And it's 80-20 money, so that means that 80% of the costs are paid out of federal dollars that come through that CMAQ program, and then the 20% is up the match money. It's up to the entities to make that up. We've then split that 4 ways. So it's basically each partner pays 5% of the total cost to make this program run. And it will be a 3-year demonstration period. I think it's going to be a great service to the citizens of LaPorte and Michigan City, the county, and the students at Purdue North Central, so that, like I said, this is the first interurban bus service that the county has had, and a great resource for us.
And a good proving model, as well as just giving those kids access to education.
Absolutely. And part of the equation for wanting to have the ridership numbers that then show that there is the need for having this service is that we're keeping the fares low. So it's $1.50 for somebody to be able to ride the bus. And we want to make sure that throughout the time period of that 3 years, we're able to keep the fares as low as possible. And certainly the intent is to keep it low beyond the 3 years as well. But we will specifically be keeping it low so that we can ensure that those large ridership numbers keep coming in, so that then the demonstration that we make to the federal government overall is as strong as possible.
Switching gears completely, you just completed a whole summer full, spring full, season of Step Up Saturdays. Tell me a little bit about the origination of it. Tell me a little bit about some of the unique cities that you got to experience, and maybe some of the people that impacted you along the way.
Sure. Well, the impetus for Step Up Saturdays came from the idea that instead of making a New Year's resolution to sort of change something that I don't like, why not try and do something that has worked well and build upon it? And so as I was thinking through around New Year's time last year, what is it that I think has gone really well that we'd like to try and expand upon? And I thought, well, Fitness Friday has been a greater success than I could have ever possibly imagined in the city of LaPorte. And so what if we took this concept to a city or town in every county across the state of Indiana and showed them how easy it is to do this, and invited people to come out and just enjoy being active for up to a 5K, the Fitness Friday model that we have in LaPorte of, just encouraging folks to entirely for free come and enjoy. Maybe just it's a social activity for folks to come and be a part of, but gets people thinking about being active, including that into their regular routine. And so I embarked upon this plan of contacting a mayor or clerk treasurer or YMCA director in a city or town in every county that there wasn't a real great strategy to how those towns were selected. A lot of them I hadn't heard of before, and so it was a great adventure for me for the past year to go and meet so many tremendous individuals across the state, to see places that I'd never seen before. And I especially hadn't spent a whole lot of time in southern Indiana, even though I actually have extended family that lives down there. And so that was a great treat to get to go and actually spend some more time and get to know some of them. And the stories that I would hear from individuals and lessons learned that I gained from other communities that are doing types of wellness activities from a community standpoint were just tremendous. And in fact, I'm headed back to Angola in March that they've asked me to come and speak about Step Up Saturdays to their local wellness group that they have for Steuben County. And so be able to share some of those stories and tales from the road with them. I can't remember the exact count now at the end of Step Up Saturdays, but I want to say that it was around 23 or 24 cities or towns that had said after we had conducted our event that they wanted to continue the program. So, I was going to be happy with one, and getting to have around 23 or 24 cities or towns that are now going to continue something. I think that's what it's going to take to get Indiana to be, we're 41st healthiest state right now. Maybe we get to 40th, I'm not sure. Just trying to get us moving in the right direction and to get people thinking a little bit more about being active, that it doesn't have to be a massive change, that there can be just gradual steps that you take into, maybe it starts with walking a block, and maybe then you go to walking 2 blocks, and once you are able to meet a friend in that capacity, then they can help encourage you along the way. And that was what it was all about, and it was a tremendous, like I said, adventure and opportunity, and I wouldn't trade a minute of it.
We talk a lot about, we sort of share a common bond for positive breeds positive, and what the potential impact that can be. It's easy to look at many of the situations you probably encounter and maybe struggle a little bit to find some of those positive components. We've recently shared a couple of examples back and forth about where you've seen that positive actually go out and make a positive impact and really pay itself forward a couple of times. Touch on one or two of those.
I mean, we've seen that happen in a couple of different cases with projects that we're working on downtown, with a plaza that we're working to build in a former building that's about to come down. That's all come from ideas that individuals have brought forward based off of, just a spark of, hey, wouldn't this be interesting? And I think because we've tried to really foster an environment that welcomes ideas, good, bad, whatever, that we'll flesh them out and then say, oh, maybe that one's not the direction that we want to go, but maybe there are some that we do follow, and that's certainly been a number of those things that we've seen happen.
Touch on a couple of the stories that when we were emailing back and forth, and I think Governor Daniels even touched on the one impact of where that spirit can have a much farther ranging impact than just LaPorte.
Mm-hmm. Well, with Law Enforcement Appreciation Day that happened this year, it was the inaugural event for that, I guess, commemoration of individuals who serve in that capacity. I felt moved to share some stories of an individual who impacted my life in a large way, of a classmate and friend of mine from Purdue University, who went on to serve at the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. And he wasn't able to serve in the military because of an old football injury that had flared up for him. And it was really heartbreaking for everybody to see him have to go through this, because he was just this tremendous leader in so many different ways, and just an amazing individual. And it's been interesting to then see the reaction that came from sharing some of that story, which it's a very difficult story for me to talk about. I'm sure you can hear it even now, because he meant a tremendous amount to me. And unfortunately, he was shot and killed in the line of duty as an Indianapolis police officer. And to hear some of the stories then that came back from individuals after I shared that on Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and why I feel it's important that we recognize the service that comes into that career path. And certainly there are some thoughtful discussions that need to be had moving forward for folks across the country, but I want us to certainly remember, as we approach those discussions, that I believe the preponderance of individuals that serve in that community share a similar mindset and a similar sense of service and commitment to causes much higher than themselves in law enforcement. And when I was able to share that story, then I heard back from an individual that is now the head of the David Moore Foundation, and he's the head of the David Moore Foundation because he is a former sheriff's deputy from Marion County and had been on the donor list or the, I guess, transplant list for 2 years prior to the tragedy of David's killing. And turned out that day when they realized that David was not going to be able to recover from his wounds, that he received David's lungs, and now is able to live a full life and continue the legacy that David had. And David impacted so many of us in our class in so many ways, and to see how that is now impacting this individual, so much so that he felt moved to then reach out to me and share his story. And he says, David lives on with me every day because I have his lungs literally with me. And there are 6 other individuals who received his organs as well. So a terrible, terrible tragedy to have lost an individual like David Moore, who impacted everyone that he met in such a huge way. And to now see that continuing on in such a special way is incredible.
you communicate so actively in so many different ways, whether it's on the radio or in the newspaper, on social media, in person, town forums, and you're constantly driving home this theme of LaPorte's the hub of awesome. It's right there on your graphic on your Facebook page. You really, sort of wear it out in every form that you possibly can. What is it about LaPorte that's so awesome?
Well, I really love this story, and why it's fun for me to talk about the Hub of Awesome is that there were always just these seemingly random stories of somehow people would have a connection back to LaPorte. And so it kind of created this joke at first of that LaPorte's the hub of awesome, that all these amazing things all circle back to LaPorte. And I've got some crazy small world stories of people's involvement in LaPorte that happened 20 years ago, and they still remember that. I'll run into them through Navy Reserve things in Serbia, and they'll talk to me about, I did the flyover of the LaPorte JC's 4th of July parade 20 years ago and still remember it. And so that was kind of what created this whole Hub of Awesome concept. And when I was in Australia as a part of a delegation of veterans that were asked to go and interact with Australian government representatives, and that kind of became the theme amongst our delegation when I talked about LaPorte, was that it's the hub of awesome. And so I had a great
Took on a life of its own.
It really did. And so it just kind of caught on, and we just started using it, and it's been, I think, a lot of fun. That it I think really does symbolize, though, for a lot of folks, of that LaPorte has a tremendous outreach that we probably don't realize, and that there are so many individuals that have some sort of connection back to LaPorte that are making a huge impact, and there are so many individuals in LaPorte that are making a huge impact right in LaPorte that then is reaching beyond the city boundaries. And that's what's kind of created the idea of the Hub of Awesome. That's a part of our personality as a community, and that's what's allowing us to be so successful, and why I talk so much about it in every medium that I have an opportunity to, is to sort of drive home that point and remind everyone of all of the assets that we have in LaPorte, and the tools in our toolbox to be able to address the different challenges. And I think that what we're starting to see across the community, from my 50,000 foot perspective, is that for so long we have really tried to be in sort of a crisis management mode, because there were a lot of challenges that we faced, not just the recession and the property tax mess, but I'm thinking probably for the bulk of my lifetime in the community, because of just different economic factors. You had the closure of some of our major industries when Alice Chalmers closed in the mid-'80s. That was a huge blow to the community. And so we've really, I think, tried to buckle down and make sure that we were doing the things that we needed to survive, and did a pretty good job of that. But we're starting to see a little bit of a pivot from not just the crisis management mode, that we're not without our challenges, and some of those are still large challenges, but we're also at a point that, because of some of the successes that we've been able to enjoy and partner with industry on specifically, that we're able to get to a point that we have more confidence as we start to think, who would we like to be as a community? Where do we want to go? What are the dreams that we want to set for ourselves? Because we could actually achieve them. We don't have to just survive, we can thrive.